In this class we want to talk about groups, and later on we'll talk about committees. So to start, let's look at some simple definitions. A group is just a collection of individuals. Group dynamics, this refers to the ways in which groups interact and also react to changing circumstances. So it's the ways in which groups interact and also the ways they react to changing circumstances. The definition of group, this refers to two or more individuals who interact with each other. Now, those definitions are extremely straightforward and extremely easy. So let's move a little bit further into this idea of groups and talk about the classification of groups. Well, first of all, we have the formal group. This is an established work group as defined by the organization's structure. So it's a formal group and it's defined by the organization's structure. So it's written into the structure. This is a specific group that does a specific task and it is written within the organization structure. It's formal. And there are two types of formal group. A command group, a group composed of individuals who report directly to a given manager. So it's a group that reports directly to a given manager. And there's also a task group who's working together to complete a task. Those who are working together to complete a specific task. It's a task group. So we have two types. One is a group that reports to a manager, a command group, and we have a task group that is looking at some issue to try and resolve some issue or to achieve some particular task. Now, informal groups, well, this form of group is not designed as part of the organization structure and does not have a rigid structure. Informal groups come into existence out of a need for social contact. There are two types of informal group. One is interest group. This is a group that works together to attain a specific objective. An interest group may be a group who is fighting a particular piece of legislation in the country, or stopping the development of some particular scheme, or promoting the development of some particular scheme. It's got an interest, and it brings together people who have the same interest. They form a group, and they use their powers as a group to bring pressure to bear on some institution or some political body. And we also have friendship groups, those brought together because they share one or more common characteristics. People who join a club, a particular club perhaps, will have common characteristics, so they are a friendship group. So we have different types of informal group. Now, let's friendship group, and let's now move to reasons for the formation of groups. Well, it could be security. Groups may form because people are afraid to stand on their own. So they're better able to cope with threats if they are within a group. Groups are stronger. There may be a reason to come together in groups because of status or recognition that they are members of a certain group. Self-esteem develops self-worth and status as a part of the group. Very similar to the status one. They want to be seen as a member of the group. It gives them self-worth. Affiliation, well, it meets a social need, regular group contact, and a sense of belonging, a sense of being a member of the group and sharing its objectives, meeting similar people, similar-minded people. It could be power. Power is derived from status and is also possible because of greater numbers. it's more possible to have power if there are greater numbers. The group will be listened to, because the group is the summation of the members. So when someone speaks on behalf of the group, they are presumably speaking on behalf of all the members of the group. And that's much stronger than if one individual spoke. And finally, goal achievement. Some tasks require group involvement. Groups may be formed, for example, for sporting occasions or for sporting objectives. Well, a team needs a certain number of members. Otherwise, the game can't be played. In business, a certain task may take a number of people from perhaps even different backgrounds, an engineer, an accountant, a designer. So the task will involve members from different disciplines. So those are some of the reasons why groups may be formed. Now, cohesiveness refers to the extent to which group members are linked and motivated to stay in the group. Because once a group comes together, then presumably the group could fall apart. So cohesiveness is what keeps them together. So for example, the size of the group. Well, smaller groups tend to be more cohesive. Smaller groups tend to stay together. If the group is very large, it may split off into subgroups, because individual members can't relate to everybody in the group. The group is too big. So subgroups, and eventually those subgroups will leave and form their own group. So smaller groups tend to be more cohesive. And personalities may seek agreement. So it may be that the cohesiveness depends on the personalities. If some personalities want to have their voice and their voice only heard, then perhaps the group, membership of that group I should say, is doomed. Because membership of a group ideally should involve compromise. It should involve give and take. But cohesiveness also depends on the time members spend together. If the group is taking too much of individual time, then it may splinter as well, or it may fold. If it's not taken enough time, if people want to have more and more activities within the group, then it may also come under problems, because alternative groups may be set up to fill that void, to fill the gap. So there must be an ideal time members spend together. Presumably that depends on the objectives of the group and the activities the group get up to. Cohesiveness also depends on the status of the group and the difficulty of group entry. If it's a high status group, then people like to be involved perhaps and like to keep their membership active. So they will be involved and they will attend meetings and make contributions because it's a high status group. And if it's difficult to get into the group, then the ones who are in will want to maintain their membership, so they will participate more. If it's easy to get into the group, then people will just come and go. Some groups may coalesce, may come together more effectively when other groups are set up. Similar groups are set up. So there may be competition within the groups, and that may cause groups to be more cohesive and to be also more dynamic and more activity within the group, just to outcompete the alternatives. Cohesiveness is also a factor of when rewards are given, they're given to the group, not to individuals. So, for example, best illustrated with sport. Let's say football. A football team. The football team win the cup. The team wins the cup. Not the individual members. The team. So the team are cohesive. The group is cohesive. They're sticking together more. They work as a team. And when a group is physically isolated and under threat, they may come together more effectively as well. It may be the case that in certain communities they feel isolated, geographically feel isolated perhaps. They might feel under threat from some development or some issue in the community. And because of this, a group is formed and it becomes very cohesive, very, very closely bound together, because they have all got a strong vested interest in the success of the group. So the success or failure of groups, the cohesiveness of groups, could to some extent depend on those 7 factors, or some of those 7 factors. So if we have organizational goals and cohesiveness, then if we've got high organizational goals and high cohesiveness, large increase in productivity. That means the group is working together very effectively. They're very cohesive, it's a high degree of cohesiveness, and they've got high standards to meet. So it's large increase in productivity. If there's high cohesiveness and the goals are not very challenging, the organizational goals are low, there could be a decrease in productivity because the group gets bored. They are very cohesive to start and very fired up and enthusiastic, but the tasks are not challenging and not very rewarding, so there's a decrease in productivity. If there's high goals, high standards required by the organization, and there's low cohesiveness, the groups are not hanging together very well or not working together effectively, then there may be a small increase in productivity. And if there's low cohesiveness and the objectives required are also not very demanding, low organizational goals, then productivity is unaffected. It was what it was and it continues as it is. In other words, nothing really changes. It's low cohesiveness, the people are not working together very effectively, but there again, the company doesn't expect too much of them. So it doesn't move along very effectively. Now in terms of group cohesiveness and productivity, well, cohesiveness reduces internal conflict and enables the attainment of group goals. So cohesiveness seems to be a good thing. It reduces internal conflict because the group are coming together more and forming close relationships that are meeting the objectives of the group very, very specifically. And then this enables the attainment of group goals. High cohesiveness promotes satisfaction and reduces absenteeism. It also reduces the number of the member turnover in the group. In other words, the number of members leaving and joining the group. So high cohesiveness, when a group is working very effectively together and very closely together, there's a high degree of satisfaction and members of the group tend to continue. There's a high degree of involvement in the group, less absenteeism. And also the members of the group tend to continue. They don't leave very easily. Groups provide security and interdependency for members from outside pressures and dangers. Well, that's one of the motivations for forming the group in the first place. The group was perhaps formed to meet a threat. The threat could be as I said before, some development within the community that's not desired, or even the group may be formed to promote some development within the community that is desired. So groups tend to come together over issues. And also group success fosters further cohesiveness. When groups are successful, then the group becomes even more cohesive, more determined, because they have a success. So if they can duplicate that in the next situation and perhaps add to it, the chances are they're going to be successful again. So they are more motivated to be cohesive and to be involved in the group. Norms. Well, norms are acceptable standards of behavior within a group that are shared by the group's members. So these are acceptable standards of behavior within the group that are shared by the group's members. And the types are, well, performance-related norms. People within the group have a fairly good idea of what each member should be doing and how they should be performing, how they should be making a contribution. And if they're not meeting that standard, they're not meeting the norm, the requirements of the group. But there are also behavioural and appearance norms. People must act in accordance with the desired etiquette of the group, whatever that is. So their behaviour, their demeanour, the language they use, the way they present themselves, must fit the norms of the group. Otherwise, otherwise their membership will be reviewed. Sorry, I've just clicked the wrong one. So now let's go to the committee organisation. A committee is simply a group of people in an organisation formed into a group for the purpose of making or recommending certain decisions. That's all a committee is. It's the most important form of formal group. A committee is a very important formal group. Now, the characteristics of a committee, well, it's a group of at least 2 people. You can't have a committee on your own, so at least 2 people. Members of the committee may have authority to inquire into an issue, so they might be given powers to investigate a certain issue, depending on the nature of the committee. Usually each member of a committee has 1 vote, and decisions may be determined democratically, although unanimity is usually preferred. They usually prefer everybody to agree. But in the event that not everybody agrees, then democracy may be used, and the greatest number of votes for something will win the day. A committee may have the authority to make a final decision, or alternatively, it may simply make recommendations. So, depends on the brief of the committee. It depends on the authority given to the committee when it was established. But it may make the final decision, or it simply may make a recommendation. A recommendation to someone else who will make the final decision, who may accept or reject the recommendations of the committee. Or, as I said, it may make the final decision, in which case that's it finished. That's what's done. In business, a committee may be constituted at any level of the organisation. Membership of a committee may be drawn from different departments of the business, depending on the issue under consideration. Within a business, committees may be at the shop floor level, certainly at the boardroom level. But everywhere in between, there may be committees formed to look into certain issues, or to monitor certain issues, or have responsibility for certain parts of the business. So committees are important formal groups. Now, the advantages of committees. Well, first of all, responsibilities are shared, so the individual members don't have to make the decisions. It's made by the committee. Generally speaking, better decision making as more members become involved, because a wider set of views will be taken into consideration. The discussions will be wider and the chances of missing something important is reduced. So better decision making may follow from a committee as opposed to a single individual. Specialised skills of members can be used to best advantage. So committees may have members who are on the committee simply because of their specialised skills. In business, there may be an accountant or a statistician or an engineer, a marketing person, whoever. So there may be a set of expertise on the committee who make contributions. And that means that the decision taken at the end is more considered. It's not a snap decision. Also, inexperienced members gain confidence while serving on committees. So it's a good training ground for up-and-coming committee members. They get experience by watching the other members of the committee, and over time they start to make a contribution themselves. So it's a good training ground. But as I said earlier, matters may be examined in more detail. That's the point. So there's more scrutiny in the committee. When issues are brought to the committee, they may be looked at by all the members or by a subgroup of the members, but they tend to be analysed in much more detail. The organisation is able to complete its business more efficiently by delegating some work to committees. The job of management may be very onerous, and by delegating some of the decision making to committees, it lightens the burden, but it also gives the management confidence that good decisions are going to come through as a consequence of the structure of the committee and the position of the committee and the brief the committee was given. Now, the disadvantages of committees. Well, appointments may be political as opposed to merit. That's a danger. I said earlier that committees may have expertise and experts coming in to sit on the committee, bringing a wide range of skills and experiences and so on. But that may not be the case. It may be the case that people see membership of the committee as a status opportunity. It enables them to enhance their status within the organisation, and they may canvass to become members of the committee. So their objectives are not in the spirit of what was intended. So political means they get themselves appointed even though they are not perhaps appropriate to that committee. The organisation may be unwilling or intimidated to challenge the decisions of expert subcommittees. And that's a problem. Even though there is an expert committee or subcommittee who's reported back on an issue, it doesn't mean they're right. Even though everybody in the committee says takes a certain position or says a certain thing, it doesn't mean that it's correct. So the organisation may feel intimidated or bullied by the committee, that if it makes a decision contrary to the recommendations of the committee, it will be seen as making a bad decision. And also, the decision-making process can become very lengthy, very long and protracted. Committees, if they're not chaired properly by the chairperson, the chairman or the chairwoman of the committee, if they're not chaired properly, some committees may drag on and on a certain issue and absorb a lot of time and hence a lot of resource to fund the committee. And they may also develop a bureaucracy, and meetings may become the norm as opposed to managerial decision making. When they become bureaucratic, by that it means the paperwork involved in the committee and the dissemination of the paperwork, passing the paperwork out amongst the members and asking for feedback and asking them to complete forms, and also meetings may just happen because they feel like having a meeting is a good idea. It's perhaps they'd have a meeting every week, whereas in fact they should really have a meeting every month, or even not have a meeting scheduled, just have a meeting as and when required, which is probably the more rational thing to do, the more efficient thing to do. So committees may become bureaucratic and meet without any good purpose. And also, once committees are formed, they tend to perpetuate themselves. They tend to stay in existence. They may be changed into other committees, but the members will import, if they get onto the new committees, they'll import their experiences from the previous one. So even though the committee has changed name, it may still end up doing the same things. So there are disadvantages to committees as well, and those are some of the disadvantages. Now, in this short class we've looked at some of the issues about groups and some issues associated with committees, and that's all I want to do in this session. So thank you for watching.